Later today, a report by the Federation of American Scientists will be released, which will reportedly raise serious concerns on the risks posed to Pakistan's nuclear weapons. It says that's because of links between militant groups and Pakistan's security services. The report comes at a time when one of Pakistan's top nuclear experts has raised serious concerns about the safety of Pakistan's nukes, concerns that have been dismissed by the government.
May 2011, General Kayani, Army Chief, Pakistan. Unlike an undefended civilian compound, our strategic assets are well protected and an elaborate defense mechanism is in place. June 2011, Parvez-e-Hood Boy, nuclear expert, Pakistan. It doesn't matter whether Pakistan's Chief of Army Staff, Ashfaq Parvez Kayani, swears on the Quran that he will make sure that nuclear weapons will be safe. The question is, does he have the power to do that? Worrying words from one of Pakistan's top nuclear experts, voicing a concern that many have. Could Pakistan's nukes ever get into the hands of terrorists? The infiltration of radical elements in the army has only heightened that concern. Last month's audacious attack on the Navy airbase in Karachi all point to inside help, and a new report by American scientists released today raises concerns that those weapons are at an even greater risk because of links between militant groups and members of the armed forces. Earlier this month, the CIA chief expressed fears that there is a danger of Pakistani nuclear weapons falling into wrong hands. The NATO chief also said security had become a matter of concern. But in a recent interview to Newsweek, Interior Minister Rehman Malik asserted that Pakistan's nukes are 200% safe. He said, the assets are well protected and tightly monitored. The International Atomic Agency agrees with us. We should be wary of the disinformation being spread against our nuclear program. But is this disinformation, or is Pakistan underplaying the threat? India is certainly watching with concern. The two countries revived talks on nuclear confidence-building measures only last week, after a gap of 4 years. Government sources say this has acquired critical importance, given the security situation in Pakistan. As those talks pick up pace later this year, India is looking at exchanging ideas on how to deal with any uncertainty over Pakistan's weapons. NDTV Bureau Report.
So the threat to Pakistan's nuclear weapons, are they very real or are they exaggerated, as Pakistan's government says? We're very happy to have Parvez-e-Hood Boy, the leading Pakistani nuclear scientist, with us on the phone line from Islamabad. He's the professor who raised those very vital questions on the safety of Pakistan's nuclear weapons. We also have well-known defense analyst from Karachi, Ikram Sehgal, joining us on the program at this hour. Mr. Hood Boy, to you first. You know, you had some very strong comments to make in your interviews to the Indian Express and to the Telegraph in the UK about the safety of Pakistan's nuclear weapons. And is the bottom line that you feel that the army in Pakistan lacks the ability, essentially, to ensure that these nukes are safe? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the fact is that important army installations, bases, headquarters, all have been attacked. And these are reputed to be the most safe of all places. This is really where the heart of the army and the military establishment is. So if they could be attacked, naturally one gets a little nervous and asks the question whether other places could also be attacked, in particular those that house nuclear weapons or that have fissile material in them. Now, the government says there's absolutely no problem. It says that we've taken all necessary precautions. We put permissive action links, electronic locks, this, that, and the other. But the fact that there have been such successful attacks and attacks that were done in collusion with insiders makes everyone nervous.
So do you think that the establishment is then in denial about the safety of the nukes there?
Well, I don't see how they can say anything different, because on the one hand, they do consider nuclear weapons to be their crown jewels. And certainly they have, there's a lot of investment in them. So if they say, these weapons are now unsafe, then that would be an admission that they can't handle them, and then they are therefore obligated to give them up. And there's no question of their giving it up.
Absolutely.
So
I think it is something that's
denial.
very difficult to say publicly. Do stay on the line with us, Professor Hoodboy. I'd just like to go across to Ikram Sehgal, who joins us from Karachi. Mr. Sehgal, your thoughts on this? I mean, do you believe that this is an exaggerated threat? I think I'm being told it's raining in Karachi. We've lost the line there, so I'll go back to Karachi in just a moment. Mr. Singh, your thoughts on this? I mean, are you, as you sit here today, very, very worried about this, or do you think it's a little bit exaggerated by the Western media?
It's an evolving worry. We've had a worry all the time, and I think in 2007 the concerns were a little allayed because US gave $100 million to Pakistan. They wanted to set up what he referred to permissive action links. Those links are that if anything is moved, you immediately come to know of it. Now Pakistan did not allow the Americans to set them up because they were worried then Americans will get to know what is where. But Pakistanis claim that they have set up those links. Now we don't know how secure they are. But what has happened since then, and I think Pervez is very brave to talk about this, and he's been talking and writing and at grave danger to himself, and that is that after the attack, after the killing of Salman Taseer, the governor of Punjab, where you know there was complicity of his immediate detail, security people were involved, after the attack on the Mehran Air Base, and I believe there was a base nearby where the assets, nuclear assets were available, and secondly, after Osama's killing, Pakistan would be concerned that the Americans may have a contingency plan to seize their assets, so which means they'll spread them out even more, which means they're available at maybe less secure and many more scattered places. And fourthly, they've ramped up the production of their weapons. They've been producing plutonium hand over fist. Some say they're going to have the fourth largest arsenal, beating England. Next only to France. Now, if that happens, the numbers go up. And finally, they've been testing tactical missiles, which means now tactical missiles, just to explain to layman, are missiles which are not to be fired at Indian cities, but at advancing Indian army, which means it's a smaller missile. It will be given at the local level to the local major general. So now you're spreading them, taking them down the army chain, and therefore it's in the hands of a major general or a brigadier. Therefore, you're increasing the possibility that if this penetration, as we know this penetration, there's one journalist who wrote about it, has been bumped off in Karachi, of the higher, we don't know how much or up to what level the penetration in the Pakistani army is.
In that,
there is penetration.
At a time when India has also started these talks on nuclear CBMs again with Pakistan, and those concern very different issues, but in the context of what's going on there, they are looking at exchanging ideas. Is there anything that India can do in a situation like this, Mr. Padgaonkar?
Yes, India can keep quiet for a change, because the more India voices these concerns, the more ammunition you would give to people who are in a state of deniability in GHQ in Rawalpindi. I believe that there is nothing short of some kind of an international inspection is going to help clear the air, because you can't be in that state of deniability. You can't speak about 200-300% safety when today these voices are coming from within Pakistan, and above all they are coming from the United States. And I think this particular report that's been published today, we need to go into the details, but I believe it's going to raise very serious concerns worldwide about the safety of those nets, particularly where, as Casey has said, evidence of penetration by jihadi elements in the army establishment appears to be far greater than what anyone has suspected so far.
That's something I want to ask Professor Hoodboy about as well, but you don't agree with him about India keeping quiet at a time like this and just...
Absolutely. I find it very hard to agree that, we are the targets of Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. And if, as K.C. Singh has rightly pointed out, that now they are not only dispersing, but lowering the chain of command at what level nuclear weapons can be used. And at this point of time, if we don't express our concerns as the target state, I wonder who will.
How will that help though?
Sorry?
How will that help? Whether we express it or not?
I think you see there are several ways. I'm not saying that you hold demonstrations and tell Pakistanis that we go and take out the nukes and stuff like that. No, I'm not talking about that. I think diplomatic pressure needs to be mounted, and we have to ensure that Pakistani nukes are safe. Let me tell you something. I'm just back from the United States, where I was part of a BJP MP delegation talking to US security experts and senior officials of the US government. Let me tell you, they are as concerned, if not more concerned, than we are. Because they are worried that, once this thing gets out of control, it could land in all kind of wrong hands. And after the Mehran base attack, where it's clear that full-fledged support was given by the establishment, and people stayed there for 3 days before the actual attack took place, there is really no security, and the world has to be concerned.
I know you don't speak on behalf of the government, but do you feel, like Chandan Mitra says, that this has to be taken up diplomatically, although I don't understand what we could do diplomatically on this.
As Chandan Mishra said, for once I'll agree with the BJP with him, that number one, it is of primary concern for us because we are the immediate recipients of anything that turns rogue in Pakistan. As Mr. Singh said, if it is something that is filtering down to the lower rank and file, how trained are these men? What are the positive and preventive checks that are kept before they fire something? These are of our concern, and since we are the largest democracy in this site, it is of international concern because the repercussions and the ramifications is there. If Pakistan is allowed to get away and do what they want to do, then it is a signal to the rest of the world that none of us are in control.
I just have got the line with Karachi, and I'd just like to go to Vikram Sehgal. Mr. Sehgal, I hope you can hear us now. We were just talking about whether this threat to Pakistan's nuclear weapons has been exaggerated or whether it is a very real threat, and Professor Hoodboy has spoken out in very frank interviews this week where he says that he does believe there is a serious threat. But do you believe that these are all exaggerated concerns?
First of all, I'd like to say that you have something like a nuclear weapon. It is always a matter of concern because it will not. But I believe that I've heard the people, I believe the threat is very much exaggerated. First of all, there is any hint at any time of any leakage of any site of any nuclear site in Pakistan at any time. Yes, we are under internal attacks on our, but let's face it, was killed by our own bodyguards. Rajiv Gandhi was garlanded by a Tamil, you can, one person getting through does not mean the whole state is collapsing, but a complete Sikh revolt. So that did not mean that the Indian army was imploding from within. The matter remains that we have proper safeguards, we have proper installation guarded. Yes, there have been security lapses, one agrees with that. But I take gentleman who said that these people stayed 3 days. I don't know where he's coming from. First of all, those people who have been, who were found dead there, they were killed, we were all foreigners. They were not even terrorists. Please explain to me how a terrorist can 2 C-130s, 7 other aircraft across 800 miles, it had go for a P-3130. Now the point is, it was very clear that it was Mac. There was an outside interest, a motivated interest, somebody who wanted to make sure would be blind and deaf. So.
Right. Well, I know what some in the Pakistani media have suggested when they talk of that outside interest. I'm so sorry about the audio line there. We're just trying to fix that to your link in Karachi. But I just wanted to bring Professor Hoodboy back. That this whole you heard Ikram Sehgal there, perhaps stating the obvious Pakistani position that this is exaggerated, that we have security concerns, but it doesn't mean the entire system has collapsed and the weapons are safe. But this whole issue of jihadi elements penetrating the armed forces there, how deep has that become? Is there a deniability in the top rank and file of the army that this has become a really big problem, in the middle and lower ranks of the army in particular?
Well, let's look at it this way. It wasn't just the Mehran base. It wasn't just Osama bin Laden. It wasn't just the general headquarters that came under attack with the help of insiders, but it was also 3 ISI headquarters in Multan, Faisalabad and Peshawar. Now, the fact is that there is a lot of nervousness in the army leadership about what they see around them. It is a fact that troops are not happy and in some cases not willing to go and fight it out in Waziristan. So there is a problem over there. How serious the problem is, one doesn't know in relation to nuclear weapons. But the fact is that there is cause to worry, in my opinion. But now let's come back to the issue which you had raised earlier. What can India do about it?
Yeah.
And I think that India should stop making provocative statements, as was made by General Deepak Kapoor a while ago, I think about a year ago or so, where he said that India has to be prepared to fight two wars at the same time. So fight Pakistan on one front, fight China on the other. And that we need to have a proactive strategy like Operation Cold Start. Now, the very mention of Operation Cold Start, which is basically a plan for doing salami slicing of Pakistan, sends shudders down the spines of our generals, which means that they're going to counteract by making more nuclear weapons, more tactical nuclear weapons, which would be used against tank formations and so forth. And then this gives a huge impetus for ramping up the nuclear arms race between India and Pakistan, which in any case was started by India.
Okay, so you would like to see more responsible statements from the Indian military in particular. You had a comment to make, Renuka Chaudhary. No, you were raising your hand. Okay, but Chandan Mitra, you had a...
You see, I think that in the arguments that have come from there. One, we are being told that so far there is no instance of any kind of subterfuge or any kind of leakage or any kind of taking stuff out. But yeah, exactly. That a nuclear, it is not a kind of gunpowder from a local factory in Sivakasi. It is nuclear fissile material. This is so that's one. And the other point is that, look, I mean, why does the problem today is that the Pakistani army is getting infiltrated. One can understand the general's paranoia. But what are they doing to stop that jihadi and Talibani infiltration? And the Taliban Pakistan has avowed aim of overthrowing the Pakistani government and seizing their strategic assets. So what are the generals doing about that? I would like to ask my Pakistani friends.
It's the perception that you are not in control that is worrying us.
No threat is a threat unless it is against US. So this is one issue which India had been raising since long. This is not this issue has not come up for the first time. This was there and we were there always. We kept on raising this issue. But now the world, since they found Osama inside Pakistan, so now they are feeling the heat that this Pakistani
Okay, so you're saying it's got attention because of Abbottabad. Yes, you had a question.
Everything in Pakistan, nothing is safe there. Let it be military, let it be navy, let it be the politicians there. They're all in hand in glove with the Taliban. About this, he has said, the Pakistani defense analyst has said that the safety measures are quite strict, the hardcore safety they have. But I think the Pakistan has tried to save the Osama also. They were not able to save Osama. Then how can we think that their nuclear arsenals will be...
So obviously big concerns. I'd like to ask Mr. KC Singh to wrap this up for us.
No, I think he is absolutely correct. What has happened is, unless it goes on the Western screens, it is not a threat. And that is why after 9/11, after 2001, we had been victims of terror since before that, since it started in Punjab in the 80s. But it becomes a global threat as soon as US becomes a target. That is unfortunate. And the same thing is happening with the nuclear one. Now, once they feel that if something comes in the hands of the terrorists or Al-Qaeda, it probably won't surface in Delhi, it may surface in New York. But to that extent, it's good. Let it be realized that there is a global problem.
All right.
And this is not just India specific.
I have to leave it at that. I'd like to thank Professor Hoodboy for speaking to us. And as Mr. Singh was saying, it is brave of you to talk about this so frankly.
But yeah, we are also concerned about his security and safety. I hope he's safe.
Yeah.
And I think it's everyone's business to ensure he remains safe.
Well, Mr. Sehgal, thank you for joining us from Karachi. I'm very sorry about that line. I believe it's raining very heavily there, so we haven't been able to speak to you as